This is not my bike, and there's absolutely no way that you're going to guess what this bike is. Well, I'm letting my neighbour ride my bike today, and I'm riding his. So it's a 2-cylinder. I'm not going to tell you how many cc's. It feels very much like sitting on my bike, but it's a 2-cylinder. You may have guessed it already, but you may not have. But anyway, while I'm here looking at the back of my bike, I gotta say, it is a nice looking bike from behind that. It really is. I think my neighbour's loving this. I think he's the kind of guy that will end up buying a bike just because he enjoys it. Yeah, you enjoying it? Yeah. Oh yeah, enjoy. This is my neighbour, Andy, and this is his bike. We've come to the old brewery in Gillingham. In Gillingham. So Gillingham sounds like it should be kind of southeast over Surrey way or something. Yeah. But this is, we actually endorse it now,
We're between Shaftesbury's just down the road.
Yeah.
So we've got Shaftesbury just down there and Wincanton. So it's sort of in between the two.
Yeah. So we come out here today, tried out some of their food. Really nice all-day breakfast and a jacket potato with tuna. I'm partial to that. So, and lovely place. Didn't know it existed, but apparently Henry Cole's been down here and done a few bits at some point. Now, I know that when I was riding down, I was trying to get you to kind of guess what bike it was. And some of you probably already know that it's not a Triumph Bonneville. Some of you that have kind of know-how on these things. But it is, for me, this is a little bit like the Japanese saw what the British were doing and they're like, we can do that a bit better. Yeah. Is that basically what it is?
Yeah, the original W started off in the late 60s and it was basically the same as an A10 BSA.
Yeah.
And this is from like the year late 90s. Yeah. And they made the W650 and they make an 800 now, which has got an injection engine, but this is just the basic 650.
This is the original 650?
Yeah.
Was it originally a competitor? Obviously, it must have been a competitor to Bonneville. They must have been thinking that.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, nobody ever put it down as that, but they always call it a bit of an old man's bike. It's not a young person's bike, but it's quite a fun bike to ride. It's not terribly fast. It's fast enough.
It's fast enough to get you in and out of trouble.
Yes, quite quickly.
Yeah. I rode this one from Bristol, so Andy rode my Thunderbird. And I rode this, and obviously the difference between the twin and the triple is massive. You can feel that. You have to kind of, this bike lets you know if you're in the wrong gear, whereas the Thunderbird you can put it in 5th gear and kind of forget about it, which you noticed on the way down, didn't you?
It almost feels like an automatic. You just forget. And you accelerate out of a bend and think, oh, I could just go for it, and there's no gear. So it could easily pull a 6th gear. But it pulls nicely, it's quite smooth. Whereas this is not terribly vibratory.
No.
But
I didn't know. I've got circulation like a 90-year-old man in my hands, right? And so I could definitely feel that there was plenty of vibes coming through. But I felt more vibes through the seat than through the handlebars, actually. So, and that doesn't bother me at all.
No.
So I didn't find it uncomfortable to ride at all. In fact, it's really nice to ride. And it's a little bit more engaging because you've got to change the gears a bit more. It's interesting you say that about the 6th gear on the Thunderbird, because when I had the Trident and took it down through France, having that 6th gear was really nice. And I did notice that it was like, oh, there's another one to click into. But didn't make a massive difference, but it made a bit of difference. How many gears is on this? Is it?
5.
It's 5. Yeah.
And with this one, I did put a bigger front sprocket on it, only 1 tooth.
Right. Okay.
Which made it a little more less revvy and easier on the motorway. And it's the same with that. I think you could go up 1 tooth on your on
the Thunderbird.
Yeah, and it wouldn't make any difference to the performance, and it might give it that little bit of feeling. But it's just nice to ride. It makes you a little bit more sedate.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't turn you into a nutter, whereas that one, it can easily.
You think so? It's got grunt, hasn't it?
I had a couple of bends where I opened up.
I saw that. I filmed those as well. I saw those. You were just off. In terms of, we were talking a little bit earlier about miles per gallon on this. What's it like? I think my Thunderbird, possibly because the engine's a little bit tired, it's done like 40 odd, 43, 44,000 miles.
Well, this one's done 39.
Has it?
Yeah.
So I reckon I'm getting maximum 50 miles to the gallon.
Well, I would say this is getting about 60.
Right. Okay.
If you do nail it a little bit, which you can do, it doesn't make a lot of difference.
No. Okay.
And if you're cruising along like we were today, you're getting about 60 to the gallon.
Yeah.
And it's not a massive tank, so you're only going to get 120 miles before you stop.
So what? Are you about 15 litres in that then, something like that?
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, it's the same on the Thunderbird. Yeah. But no, absolutely loved it, mate. It's an interesting bike. So you don't see that many of them around. I have seen a guy on YouTube, I can't remember who he is, but mainly does loads of shorts, I think, but he rides, or maybe he does long form as well, but he rides one of the 800s, W800s. Yeah. And for ages I was watching, and I didn't know that it wasn't a Triumph. So I was like, oh, I'm getting a...
And there's a BSA. And that was a BSA.
Oh, was it?
An A65. So
basically, if you're in the market for one of these, mate, what will you be paying, and are they easy to find?
There's a few. There's not masses of them, but there's always some for sale on eBay, and you could pay, say, 2.5 to 3.5 grand.
Right. Okay.
2.5 would buy you a pretty rough one, really.
Yeah.
But 3.5 would buy you a really nice one.
Yeah.
And the 800s are sort of coming down to about 3.5 as well.
So they're a similar price to a Bonneville, then, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. They're probably a little bit cheaper than a Bonneville.
Yeah.
But it's just different. It's just slightly different to a Bonneville.
Yeah.
And
you've ridden a Bonnie, have you? So you can compare them. What's the difference in your opinion?
Well, the things with the Bonnies, they're 900s or 8 sort of 6.5, and then you go on to 900s. They're a bit more power to them.
Yeah.
Definitely a bit more power, and the newer ones are even better still. The Scramblers, the 900 Scramblers.
Nice. They are nice.
But you're talking double the money.
Yeah,
easily.
And then you haven't got your carbs to play with.
No, and it's just a very.
This is straightforward to work on.
It's really basic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that old Japanese thing that you don't need to touch it really.
Yeah.
Just leave it alone. Put a set of plugs in it every 10,000 miles. Change the oil every.
Most bikes are like that, aren't they? Like just don't fiddle with them if they don't need to be fiddled with, but we fiddle with them anyway.
But that was the issue with old British bikes, wasn't it? When I was first riding a British bike, we used to have a Belstaff jacket with half a dozen spark plugs and 10 spanners and a couple of fuses, a bit of wire, maybe a bit of chewing gum and a pencil.
Because I remember you telling me that story. It ended up on the DGR
video. Yeah, I saw. Yeah.
There's some people came up to you and said, "Nice bike" or something.
And nice old bike you've got.
And then you told them it was a Kawasaki.
And they just turned, walked away.
Yeah, funny.
But people still ask what it is, because it's got no badges on it, but on the back of the seat it's got Kawasaki.
Yeah.
But even people who've got bikes look at it and go, what is it?
Because it is an unusual bike, because immediately you think Bonneville, when you look at it. Of course you do. But no, I think it's brilliant.
But it's nice because it's a bevel gear drive overhead cam.
Right.
So you've got no chains, no push rods.
Right.
So it's pretty maintenance.
Have you had this open and had a look
inside?
I've had
the head off of it because we had a really bad leak on one of the down the bottom of the base gasket.
Yeah.
And I had to take the barrels off, and there was nothing wrong with it. Just a 50p oil seal. So with a new set of gaskets, reseating the valves, it was only about 80 quid for all the bits to put it back together.
Yeah, and you did that yourself?
Yeah, and that's been going for 15,000 miles now.
Yeah, right.
I haven't touched it.
They just go, don't they? Yeah. Bikes just go. They just go. No, it was a fun bike to ride down here. It really was. I'm going to get back on mine on the way back just so I can get that immediate comparison to see what it feels like. But yeah, I must admit, when I was riding, I was looking at my bike from behind, which I never get to do.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was thinking, that really looks quite nice, that bike.
Did it look like it went quite well?
It looks like it goes well. And I put a Legend back wheel on because the original Thunderbird back wheel is a 16-inch. So getting a tyre for that is like, well, you can get them, but you got all of them, particularly because we're going over to Norway next Thursday. And I guarantee trying to get a tyre for that would be almost impossible over there. So I thought,
at 17, you got a choice of everything.
Yeah, loads. And I feel like it looks better. I prefer the look of the 17-inch wheel, and I felt like it handled a bit better.
Yeah, well, I never rode it with the other wheel, but it handles fine.
Yeah, and because with just the amount of tyre, if you don't get the tyre pressure just right, you can really sense it that it's not. But yeah, anyway, it looked good from behind, so it was nice to see it.
I couldn't hear. I can hear that more than that.
Really?
Yeah.
It did pop a little bit on decel.
It does pop and bang on. I think.
You get a little bit of popping off mine on decel as well. I think. So.
But I think because you haven't got any sort of screen, you've got quite a lot of wind noise.
Yeah.
And I didn't put my earplugs in because I had my sat nav.
Oh yeah.
And it's quite a lot of wind noise. But that little screen there does.
That is ideal. I had that on the Trident.
It does take a little bit away from you.
And I like the look of it as well. It looks quite cool. But what I'd love to chat with the the Japanese engineers that designed this and what their thinking was when they made it. Were they like, oh, we're going to show the British how to make their own bike?
Well, Kawasaki have always been innovators and making new stuff. When you go back to like the Z1300 and now the supercharged thing, and the two strokes back in the 70s were phenomenal. Yeah. They were so fast and dangerous.
Yeah. Cheers, mate. Thanks for letting me ride it. Yeah. Much appreciate that. And
we'll head back.
Yeah. Way home. So I have to say that riding that W650 was a lot of fun. It's a different bike altogether from the Thunderbird, and sitting back on the Thunderbird now, it feels like I've kind of come home, you know, back on my beauty, back on my baby. And I love this thing. There is something about, like, I'm in 5th gear already, and yeah, it is so true. That's the first thing I'm noticing, is that when I was on the 650 there, the twin, you gotta change gears quite a lot. Whereas now, I'm in 5th gear already. Like, that just feels weird. I've got nowhere to go. I'm there already. There's nowhere to go. And smoothness wise, this has a whole different level of smooth to it, a whole different level of smooth. On that bike I felt it through the seat, felt the kind of the rumbling through the seat, and the kind of the thump of the engine through the seat, not so much through the handlebars but through the seat quite a bit. On this it's a bit more kind of armchairy. I'm not feeling anything whatsoever. And that's quite nice. But he didn't like my wing mirrors so much. I love these wing mirrors, I thought they're great. It does like it's overtaking. I'll give him that. I can't quite see what's coming there, so oh, here we go. Oh, here we go. That'll do for me. Nice. So I suddenly realised that I am probably getting to the very end of my tank of petrol here, as I always have to do with the Thunderbird. I have to return the clocks to 000 and make sure that I stop at approximately 100 miles. I'm on 102 miles right now.
but I've ridden fairly carefully, so I've probably got a few more miles left, and I do have a reserve tank. Oh hello, I can see a petrol station. Way! Here we go. Time for some fuel. Well, hey. Right, we'll have a bit of that. Bit of that, innit? Bit of fuel. Here we go. Here we go.
That road we just came down from Tewton Mendit.
Yeah.
We used to meet up as a group, and we all had pretty fast bikes, and the object was to go from that point, which is about 3 miles, and not go below 100 miles an hour.
Gosh.
And those were the days. It was a little bit mad.
So today was an exciting one because I got to ride a Kawasaki W650. Now I know there's the W800, and that might be the more popular one in that series. I don't know. One thing that you do notice when you get on these older bikes, it's almost like riding something that has its own personality. I don't know if you know what I mean. When you get on an old bike, it's not like all refined and slick and just like kind of showroom. You get on something that's got it's got its own personality. It's got a way of riding. It's got a way of being. And that's what I love about the older bikes. And that's what I love about carb bikes as well, because carb bikes seem to have like their own little kind of personalities going on. Even if you get two kind of identical models, they can be slightly different. So anyway, so the W650, I remember the first time I saw that bike, my neighbour, I was absolutely convinced from a distance that it was a Triumph Bonneville. But obviously it's not. And it's almost like the Japanese looked at this British bike and were like, yeah, we'll make something just like that, but maybe just a little bit better. And I don't know whether you can say it's a better bike or a worse bike, because the Bonneville was a tried and tested, fantastic Triumph that has stood the test of time for sure. But seeing a Japanese bike that has so many of the characteristics and similarities to the Bonneville, and looks and everything, just that kind of aesthetic, and doing it so well, it seems almost kind of out of character to the other Japanese bikes that are around, because it's kind of an unrefined, raw bike with loads of personality. And I suppose you look at some of the older kind of the Z900s and bikes like that, they had, a lot of personality as well. But it just seemed to be this kind of like the Japanese doing British engineering, but kind of just making it their own in a way. And I like that. I really liked it. So I was like, what am I going to think of this bike? What am I going to think? Having said that, I haven't actually ridden a Triumph Bonneville of that kind of era, or an early Bonneville, a carbed Bonneville. I haven't. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to ride. Hugely different from the Thunderbird. And I've got to admit something here. When I bought the Thunderbird, I knew so little about Triumph motorcycles. And I actually thought that I was looking at a Bonneville initially. When I looked at the Thunderbird, I just glanced, I thought, I really like the look of that. And I went for it initially because I really liked the look of it. And I went down to see the guy when I bought it from him, down in Weston-super-Mare. I bought it from the guy. And I remember saying to him, oh yeah, has this got like the same engine as the Bonneville? And he just gave me that look of like, you don't know what you're talking about, do you? And I was like, he said, no, this is a triple. I was like, oh, okay, cool. But the difference between riding the twin and riding the triple is massive. It's absolutely huge. With the twin, I felt like I was having to change gears quite a lot. It let me know when it wasn't happy with the gear that I was in, because it kind of went a little bit whereas Andy was riding the Thunderbird, and said literally you could just put it in 5th gear and ride the whole way. It's almost like being an automatic. And I think probably at a push, you could probably get away with 2 gears on the Thunderbird, 1st or 2nd and 5th. And it would be all right. It would be all right because you really can let that thing just sit in 5th and it will be just fine. Absolutely. He did mention that he thought it could really do with a 6th gear, which is what you get on like the Trident and the Sprint and stuff like that, and the Thunderbird Sport, I believe. And I thought when I got back on the Thunderbird to ride it back today, I was like, actually, that 6th gear, yeah, it would be quite nice with that 6th gear, and the 6th gear on the Trident would fit very nicely onto the Thunderbird as well. But yeah, the difference is massive, and it's 2 very, very different bikes. They're characteristically very, very different to ride. Apart from the stance, quite similar stance, quite similar seating position to the Thunderbird. And I like that seating position. It's my favourite seating position, actually, a little bit more sit upright. But I did realise also on the way back when I rode the Thunderbird that the Thunderbird has a lot more kind of available power right there. I mean, obviously it's a 650 and a 900, so it's like comparing apples and oranges in it. They're really not that comparable in many ways, but I did really enjoy it. I really enjoyed it, and a lot lighter, a lot more kind of flickable. The handling was really nice, and definitely a bike that took me a little bit by surprise. I wasn't expecting that at all. So really enjoyed it. Thanks so much, Andy, for letting me use your bike and riding it down to the cafe there. I think we probably covered about 80 odd miles today there and back. So not a huge ride, but my gosh, it was hot, sweaty, and why I didn't wear my mesh jacket, I will never know. I do not know. What was I thinking? Anyway, brilliant. That's all for now. Hope you enjoyed that one. Any questions, any comments, leave them below. I'd love to hear if you've got a W650, W800. Love to hear from you. I know there's a guy on YouTube that does shorts and some long form stuff as well. I mentioned him earlier on. I can't remember his name, but he rides around London, I think, on his W800. And for ages I was watching his little shorts, him riding around, thinking, oh, he's just riding around on a Bonneville. And I was like, oh, hang on a minute. No, it isn't. He puts it in the little kind of hashtags below that it's a Kawasaki. There you go. Brilliant. Speak to you next time. As always, like, subscribe, comment, all the good stuff, and I will catch up with you on the next one. See ya.